Thanksgiving has always been a weird time for me. I'm Jason, 29, and if you asked me a decade ago, I would have said I was close with my family. I mean, I was the kid who stayed behind when my mom passed, so I could help take care of everything. Paperwork, funeral arrangements, even my younger sister, Melissa, who was still in high school at the time. My dad wasn't exactly emotionally present, and after mom passed, it was like someone flipped a switch in him. He got colder. Not abusive or anything like that, just indifferent. Like he was going through the motions until he could clock out. Still, I stayed. I paused college for a year and took on two part-time jobs to keep us afloat while he grieved. I thought it would bring us closer, maybe give us a sense of unity. But over time, it became clear I was more of a placeholder than a person in that house. Fast forward to now. I live in another state, decent job, quiet apartment. I keep to myself, but I send money home every month. I cover part of the mortgage because, well, Dad's not great with money and Melissa's in med school. No one really asked me to. Dad kind of just expected it. One month, I noticed the mortgage was 2 weeks late and called him. He said, "Yeah, I figured you'd get around to it." No thanks, no apology. That's when the first crack formed, I think. Still, I told myself, it's family. You don't just walk away. But something about this Thanksgiving felt different. It was the first time I wasn't invited. Usually I got a text, a phone call, some kind of passive hope to see you there from Melissa or my stepmom. Karen, yes, that's her real name. But this year, nothing. Silence. I figured maybe they assumed I was coming anyway, so I bought my ticket and packed a small bag. I even got Karen one of those expensive candles she always fawns over, the kind I can't afford without cringing at the price tag. I wanted to believe that if I showed up, everything would be okay. That maybe they'd missed me, even if they didn't say it. The flight landed early Thanksgiving morning. I didn't bother with an Uber. I rented a car so I wouldn't be a burden. I remember pulling into the driveway and seeing all the cars lined up already. Cousins, aunts, people I hadn't seen in years. The house looked warm, windows glowing, smells of turkey and spices leaking through the cracks. For a second, standing on that porch, I felt nostalgic. Like maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe it was just a miscommunication. Then the door opened. My dad stood there, holding the knob like he didn't know what to do with it. He was dressed nice, freshly shaved, sweater over collared shirt. He looked surprised, but not in the good way. It wasn't, "Jason, hey." It was like I'd just shown up uninvited to a stranger's party. "There's no seat for you this year," he said. Just like that. Flat voice. "It's just family tonight." I blinked. Thought maybe he was joking, that he'd pull me into one of those awkward dad hugs a second later. But he didn't move. Just stood there, blocking the entryway. "Right?" I said after a long pause. "Got it." He didn't try to explain. I didn't ask. I turned around, walked back to the car, and drove away. I don't remember where I went first, maybe a gas station or a quiet parking lot. I know I sat there for a while, staring at the dashboard. I wasn't even angry at first. Just numb. The kind of numb that makes your ears ring and your chest feel like a vacuum. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Melissa. "Don't take it personally. You always make things weird." That was when something inside me snapped. Not in a rage kind of way, but like a heavy beam finally collapsing after years of quiet strain. I stared at her message, reread it 3 or 4 times, then opened the banking app on my phone. I had been sending $1,200 a month for over 2 years. That month's mortgage was due on the 25th, tomorrow, but it hadn't been processed yet. I'd scheduled the payment early while I was booking flights. I could still reverse it. I stared at the little "Cancel Transfer" button for a good 30 seconds. Then I tapped it. Then I moved the funds back into my personal savings. That night, I ordered room service from a hotel 2 cities away. Slept like a baby for the first time in months. But the real storm hit the next morning. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. First it was Karen, missed call, voicemail. Then my dad. Then Melissa. Then Karen again. The group chat, which had been silent for weeks, suddenly exploded with messages. "Jason, did you cancel the mortgage payment? Call me now. This isn't funny. We're already getting a notice from the bank." Still, I didn't answer. I just sat there in that quiet hotel room, sipping burnt coffee from a paper cup, watching the fallout unfold. By mid-morning, they had moved from confusion to full-blown panic. I watched the group chat light up like a bonfire. Melissa demanding an explanation, Karen trying to guilt-trip me with passive-aggressive lines like, "We didn't mean to hurt your feelings," and my dad. Well, he just sent one sentence. You're blowing this way out of proportion. That one got to me more than I expected. Not the cruelty of it, but the complete lack of accountability. I'd been dismissed at the door of my own childhood home, told to my face that I wasn't family. And now I was the one being unreasonable? I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have a million things I wanted to say, but because I knew anything I said would be twisted. That's how it always went. If I explained my side, I was being dramatic. If I stayed quiet, I was being passive-aggressive. If I walked away, I was abandoning the family. No matter what I did, I was always the problem. So instead of answering, I forwarded the mortgage account details to their shared email, the same one I used to set up automatic payments 2 years ago. I included a polite note. Hi, effective immediately, I will no longer be covering the mortgage or any household expenses. The property is still in your names, and all future payments are your responsibility. Wishing you all the best, Jason. No emotion, no digs, just facts. I think that's what hit them hardest, my silence. Because when people like my family lose their punching bag, they don't know what to do with themselves. Melissa tried again later in the day, this time pretending she cared. Can we please just talk? I don't want to fight. She followed it up with, you know, Dad didn't mean what he said. It was a joke. But I knew better. My father doesn't joke. Not like that. Not ever. If he said there was no seat for me, he meant it. If Melissa said I made things weird, she meant that too. And the truth is, I think they've always felt that way. I didn't fit into their mold. I was quieter, more observant. I didn't laugh at their mean-spirited jokes or play along with their traditions that always revolved around drinking too much and rehashing the same stories about how great they all were. I used to think I was the odd one out. Now, I think I was just the only one who grew up. That evening, I turned off my phone and went for a walk through a little park near the hotel. Leaves were everywhere. Orange, red, brittle. Kids running, couples laughing. For a moment, I let myself feel it. The grief, the relief, the weight of everything I'd been carrying for years. It was weirdly peaceful, like I had finally set something down that was never mine to carry in the first place. But the peace didn't last long. The next day, I got a call from the bank. Apparently, with the payment reversed and no backup funds from my dad, the mortgage had officially entered default status. They hadn't missed just one payment either. My dad had apparently been relying on me so much that he hadn't put anything toward the house in over 3 months. He figured I had it covered. When the bank rep asked if I wanted to resume payments or refinance under my own name, I laughed, actually laughed, and politely declined. I knew what was coming next. Sure enough, within 2 days, Karen sent me a long email. It started off kind. Jason, I hope you're doing okay. I've been thinking a lot about what happened. Your father feels terrible. Then came the pivot. We're in a difficult position right now. The house is at risk, and it would really mean a lot if you could just cover this next payment while we figure things out. I didn't reply. Melissa texted again, this time angrier. So you're really just going to let the house go under? Are you serious right now? You're being petty. That one nearly made me respond. But I stopped myself. Instead, I screenshotted the message. Saved it in a little folder I'd started called Closure. Not out of spite, just as a reminder. A reminder of how they saw me. Not as a brother, not as a son, just as a line item on their balance sheet. By the end of that week, the group chat had gone quiet, like a fire that finally ran out of fuel. But then came the voicemail. One I wasn't expecting. It was from my uncle, my mom's brother. I hadn't spoken to him in years, not since her funeral. But his voice was calm, almost sad. Hey, Jason, I just heard about what happened. I don't know what they said to you, and I don't want to get involved in all that. But I want you to know, your mom would have been proud of you. Not just for helping out all these years, but for finally standing up for yourself. You didn't deserve how they treated you. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I sat with that message for a long time. And that's when I made my decision. I wasn't just stepping back from them. I was stepping away for good. But just when I thought the worst of it was over, when I started to feel the edges of freedom for the first time in years, Melissa did something I didn't see coming. Something that dragged the entire mess into the public eye. And that was the moment everything changed. I found out through a friend from high school. She messaged me out of nowhere. Hey, weird question. Is everything okay with your family? Melissa's post seemed a lot. Confused, I opened Facebook. I hadn't used it in months, but I still had an account. Sure enough, right there on Melissa's profile was a long, dramatic post. The kind people write when they want sympathy but don't want to name names. It started off innocently enough. This year has been one of the hardest of my life. Watching my parents struggle, watching our childhood home fall into danger, and feeling helpless as someone we trusted turned their back on us. It's heartbreaking. Then it got worse. Sometimes people change. They forget where they came from. They become cold. They use money as a weapon. We've done everything we could to hold this family together, but some people just love tearing things down. She included a picture of the house, a throwback photo from some Christmas years ago. My mom was in it. So was I? I was maybe 17, holding Melissa's gift with a goofy grin on my face. Back when we still smiled for real. The comments? Brutal. Who would do that to their own family? Some people only care about money. You're better off without that kind of toxic energy. One person even wrote, cut them out. You don't need that negativity in your life. The irony hit like a brick. I didn't comment. I didn't defend myself. But I read every word. Every single word. And then something in me clicked. Not like before, not just a snap of frustration. This was different. It was clarity. Because up until that point, I still held on to this faint hope that maybe, just maybe, they didn't understand what they'd done. That maybe there was some miscommunication, some emotional blind spot. But no, they understood. They just didn't care. They were rewriting the story, and they were painting me as the villain. I wish I could say I cried, or that I threw my phone in a dramatic rage, but no. I just sat there, phone in hand, staring at the photo. My mom, me, Melissa, back when things were still simple. I didn't recognize that version of us anymore. Later that evening, I got a message from a cousin I hadn't heard from in years. Tim, the only one who never really fit into the family mold either. He messaged me privately. Hey man, I saw Melissa's post. I knew it was BS. Don't let it get to you. You did more for them than anyone else ever has. Then, almost like an afterthought, you still paying for their utilities? I stared at the message. Utilities. That's right. Electricity, water, internet. When mom got sick, I set up a bunch of those bills under my name. They were never changed. I'd completely forgotten. The monthly charges were so small compared to the mortgage, they barely registered. Auto-paid. Out of sight, out of mind. Until now. I opened the utility app. All the accounts were still active. Still billed to me. Still under my name. I checked the most recent invoice. The power bill alone was through the roof. Apparently someone had installed a hot tub. A hot tub. I stared at the screen, heart calm, fingers still. Then I clicked cancel service. One by one. Electric, gas, water, internet. And with every confirmation, I felt something inside me unclench. Not vengeance. Not anger. Just release. And here's the thing. I still didn't say a word to them. I didn't respond to Melissa's smear campaign. I didn't call my dad to warn him. I didn't even bother replying when Karen texted me the next morning saying the Wi-Fi was down and could I please look into it. Instead, I booked a weekend getaway. Cabin in the woods. No cell service. Just me, a stack of books, and a fireplace. When I came back, my phone was an explosion of notifications. Voicemails, missed calls, emails from the utility company. We've attempted to contact you regarding account closures. And finally, a text from my dad. No greeting. Just, what is going on? And right as I was considering whether I'd even reply, a screenshot came in from a different number. Someone had forwarded me Melissa's new Facebook post. And this one took it nuclear. Melissa's second post was less cryptic and far more desperate. Gone was the polished victim tone. This time, it was raw and impulsive, likely written in a fit of rage. I've kept quiet for too long. My brother has decided to completely cut us off. No warning, no explanation. First, he canceled the mortgage payment and nearly got our home taken. Then he shut off all the utilities while we were still living here. He didn't even tell us. Just flipped the switch and walked away. I don't know what kind of person does that to their own family, especially after everything we've done for him. She even posted a photo of the family sitting in the living room, bundled up in coats and blankets, with a caption that read, "No heat, no lights. But hey, at least he's got his peace, right?" And then, just to top it off, she tagged me. Full name. Public post. That was the first time they'd ever truly dragged me into the light. No more subtle jabs or whispered side eyes. This was a full-on call-out. My inbox flooded with messages. Some from extended relatives, others from strangers demanding to know how I could be so heartless. But you know what surprised me? Among all the noise, there were a few voices, quiet, but steady, that started pushing back. A former coworker commented, "Isn't Jason the one who supported your family financially for years?" A girl I dated briefly wrote, "He's the most responsible person I've ever met. If he walked away, there's probably a very good reason." And then Tim, my cousin, the only one who ever saw through the smoke, left the perfect comment. Maybe ask yourself why your brother paid your bills, your mortgage, and kept your house running for 2 years, while being told to his face he wasn't part of the family. You don't get to throw someone away and still expect their loyalty. That comment alone got dozens of likes, more than Melissa's post. She deleted the whole thing less than an hour later. But the damage had already been done, to her image, sure, but more importantly, to their illusion. That carefully curated narrative they'd spent years building. The perfect family, the loyal daughter, the selfless father. It was cracking. And for the first time, other people were seeing the fractures I'd lived with for most of my adult life. A few days later, I got a call from the bank again. This time, not about the mortgage, that ship had already sailed, but about the utilities. Apparently, my dad had tried to reactivate the accounts and was confused why he couldn't. They needed authorization from the account holder. When they told him that was me, he apparently lost it. I could hear him yelling in the background while the rep calmly asked if I'd like to permanently close all associated services. I gave them verbal confirmation. Then I blocked the number. But they weren't done yet. That weekend, my dad showed up. Not metaphorically, literally. He stood outside my apartment building like some villain from a low-budget family drama. Arms crossed, jaw tight. He didn't buzz my unit. He waited until someone else walked out, then slipped in and pounded on my door like he owned the place. I answered it, not because I wanted to talk, but because I was done running. He looked older than I remembered, more tired. His clothes were wrinkled, hair uncombed, face drawn in tight lines. "Really?" he said, not even saying hello. "You're just going to let the family fall apart?" I stared at him for a long moment. "You mean the same family that told me I didn't have a seat at the table? That I make things weird?" "That family." He flinched, just slightly, but I saw it. "That was a mistake," he said. "We were upset. Karen said something, and it spiraled. You should have talked to me." I laughed, short and bitter. "You were at the door, Dad. You didn't stop it. You didn't say a word." He looked away, jaw clenching. Then he tried to shift tactics. "Look, the house is in trouble. Your sister's loan fell through. I'm trying to refinance, but without your name on the papers." "There it is," I interrupted. "You're not here for family. You're here for the house." Silence. He didn't deny it. "You think I'm heartless," I said. "But the truth is, I was the only one who ever showed up. I gave you years of support, financially, emotionally, and you never once said thank you. Never once acknowledged that I kept your life from falling apart." "I didn't ask you to," he muttered. "No," I agreed. "You didn't. You just expected it." Another beat of silence passed. Finally, he looked up and said, "So that's it? You're done?" I nodded. "I've been done. I just didn't know it until now." He stood there a moment longer, then stepped back. For a second, I thought he might say something human, something real. But all he said was, "You'll regret this." I closed the door, and I didn't open it again. A month passed. Then two. The group chat went silent. The calls stopped. The drama faded like a bad dream, loud and vivid one moment, then distant and meaningless the next. I moved apartments. New city. New job. A clean break. Then, one afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. It was from the bank. Final notice of foreclosure. I didn't celebrate, but I didn't mourn either. Some endings aren't fireworks or dramatic speeches. Sometimes they're just silence. The house went up for auction a few weeks later. I didn't attend, but a neighbor from the old street sent me a photo. The front lawn overgrown, the windows shuttered. A sold sign staked in the ground. It looked nothing like home, and maybe that was the point. Because when I finally let go of the place I thought I was supposed to belong, I found peace in places I never expected, in morning coffee that didn't come with guilt, in nights without anxious phone calls, in weekends that were finally mine. And as for my family, they still tell people I abandoned them. But that's okay, because now, for the first time in my life, I don't need to explain myself to anyone. I'm finally free. I'm Jacob, 34 years old, and if there's one thing I've learned in the last 2 years, it's this. Family can cut deeper than any enemy ever could. Not because of what they do, but because you never see it coming, because you trust them, love them, and carry the blind hope that one day they'll treat you the same way. Growing up, I was the reliable one. The one who didn't crash the family car, didn't sneak out of the house, didn't scream at our mom in the middle of church. That was my younger sister, Megan. She had a flair for drama and a golden halo in our parents' eyes, no matter what mess she caused. Me? I got the hand-me-downs and the lectures. Megan got the second chances and the she's going through a phase excuses. But I didn't resent her. Not at first. I figured families are just messy sometimes. Maybe it'd balance out later in life. So I went to community college, worked full-time, paid off my student loans, and slowly climbed up the ranks at a tech company that didn't care about my last name, just my work. Meanwhile, Megan bounced between MLM schemes and finding herself in expensive wellness retreats funded by, you guessed it, mom and dad. It all came to a head about 18 months ago when I got a call from my mom. She said, "Your father and I are in a bit of a financial bind. The mortgage payment is getting tricky. We didn't want to bother you, but Megan's been having health issues, and we've had to support her more than we expected." I didn't ask for proof. I didn't press for details. I just said, "Send me the account info for $1,600 a month." Every month. I set it to auto-pay from my account. It hurt. Not because of the money. I could afford it. Barely. But because they didn't even ask how I was doing. I just moved into a modest one-bedroom, still renting. No housewarming card. No visit. Just a steady drip of silence between payments. I told myself it was temporary. That I was doing the right thing. That maybe this would finally earn some respect. I was wrong. The first real crack came at Megan's birthday dinner, hosted at the house I was quietly paying for. When I arrived, Megan looked at me like I was a waiter who'd wandered into the wrong section. "Oh, you made it," she said, with a fake smile already halfway off her face. "There's beer in the garage fridge, I think." I brought a $200 digital frame preloaded with pictures from our childhood. A sentimental gift I thought might melt some ice. She never opened it. Then came Dad's toast. To Megan, he beamed. "You've always been the light in this family, the one who keeps us young and laughing. You're the reason this house is still a home." I nearly choked on my water. They hadn't even mentioned me. Not once. But it got worse. Over the next few months, I noticed a change in tone during the rare texts I got from Mom. Shorter. Colder. One-word responses. And Megan? She was suddenly playing homemaker, hosting brunches, redecorating the house, posting candid Instagram stories showing off the kitchen backsplash as if she owned the place. Then I heard from a family friend that Megan had moved in permanently, and that Mom had been telling people Megan was helping with the mortgage. I laughed at first. Then I just sat there, staring at the payment confirmation email on my screen. One afternoon, I decided to visit. No warning, just a quick stop by on my way home from work. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed the lawn had been professionally landscaped, something I knew my parents wouldn't splurge on. Then I saw the new welcome mat, the Moore family, established 2024. Moore was Megan's last name. I rang the bell. No answer. I rang again. Still nothing. But I could hear music inside, pop music, Megan's taste, not my parents'. I texted Mom, "Hey, I'm outside. Can we talk?" No response. That night, I got the message. From Mom, "We've blocked your number and changed the locks. You're no longer part of this family. No, please understand. No, this is hard for us." Just pure, detached finality. I stared at the text, read it twice, then a third time. Then I smiled. Not out of joy. Out of clarity. "Got it," I replied. "But you forgot one crucial thing." I opened my banking app. I canceled the auto payment. All $4,600 of it. 18 months of loyalty. 18 months of silence. 18 months of pretending I didn't notice the growing gap between what I gave and what I got back. 2 days later, I got a voicemail. "Jacob, this is Alan Peterson. I'm representing your parents regarding a pressing financial matter. We need to speak with you immediately. Please call back at your earliest convenience. It's urgent." I didn't call, because by then, I had already received the foreclosure notice. Not addressed to me, of course. It went straight to them, Mom, Dad, and Megan, via certified mail, hand-delivered to the same porch that had once been mine to walk up to without knocking. But I called the bank 2 days prior, explained that I was the one making the payments, not a co-signer, just a private party covering it voluntarily, and that I was no longer willing to continue. I didn't need to threaten anything. I simply revoked authorization, and the rest took care of itself. You'd be surprised how fast a house of cards collapses when no one's paying the mortgage. But let me rewind a bit, because the real unraveling didn't start with the foreclosure letter. It started with the panic that hit about 12 hours after that lawyer's voicemail. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to my email blowing up. First, it was Megan, then Mom, then even my dad, who hadn't spoken directly to me in months. Megan typed, "Why would you do this? What is wrong with you?" Mom typed, "Please, let's be civil. You're overreacting. We didn't mean anything by it." Dad typed, "We need to talk. This isn't how family handles things." That one made me laugh out loud. Because apparently, family handles things by changing locks, blocking numbers, and pretending someone doesn't exist until the bills stop being paid. Still, I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The next day, I checked Megan's Instagram. Her latest story had vanished. You know, the one with her posing in front of the house like it was some magazine spread. The hashtag blessed, hashtag more mansion, caption had mysteriously disappeared too. I knew why. Because behind that front door, things were spiraling. The house wasn't in foreclosure yet, not officially. But the moment the payment was missed, and there was no Megan to cover it, no family teamwork to dig them out of the mess, I knew the clock had started ticking. I got confirmation from the bank a week later. The property had entered pre-foreclosure status. That meant notices, calls, red tape, stress, and suddenly, I was very important again. Mom tried calling me from a different number. When I didn't pick up, she left a voicemail that almost sounded like her old self, if you ignored the desperation under every word. "Jacob, honey, this has gone too far. We were angry, yes, but you have to understand, we didn't mean to hurt you. Megan has just been going through so much, and your father and I were trying to keep the peace. Please call me back. Please." I almost did. Not because I wanted to reconcile. No, that ship had sailed and sunk. But because I wanted to ask one question. What peace were you keeping? The kind that forgets who's feeding the roof over your head? The kind that rewrites the truth and sells it back to you in installments of guilt? The kind that expects your silence while they mock you from a home you're secretly paying for? No, I didn't call. Instead, I did something pettier. Or maybe something honest, depending on how you look at it. I sent Megan one final message. Short, surgical, clean. Turns out it wasn't your house after all. She left it on read. But not before she blocked me. I figured that was the end of it. But it wasn't. The real finale came a few days later when I received another voicemail from their lawyer. "Mr. Jacobs, the house is officially in pre-foreclosure. Unless the full past due amount is paid immediately, legal proceedings will continue. Your parents were under the impression this situation was resolved. Please call me back." They're extremely distressed. I bet they were. Because here's the thing. They'd taken for granted the one person in the family who never asked for anything. Not praise, not gifts, not public credit. Just decency. A place at the table. A little honesty. Instead, they handed my seat to Megan. Rolled out the red carpet for her, while quietly expecting me to pay for it all behind the curtain. They never imagined what would happen when I simply stepped off stage. And now? Now I hear they're trying to sell the house, scrambling for a buyer before the bank takes it entirely. But no one's biting. The local market's cold, and the story about their financial troubles is starting to float through the neighborhood like smoke. Funny how people ask questions when they see a once proud family suddenly stumble. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't have to. The silence said it all. But even now, even after all this, a part of me still aches. Not because I want them back in my life, but because I once did. I once believed that if I just worked harder, paid more, stayed quiet, they'd see me, respect me, treat me like more than a walking wallet with a shared bloodline. That illusion is gone now. And honestly, it's the most freeing thing I've ever lost. But the real chaos, oh, that's still coming. Because you wouldn't believe what they tried next. 2 days after that last voicemail, I was sitting in my apartment, quiet, warm, everything paid for by me and only me, when I heard a knock at my door. Not the mailman, not a neighbor, no delivery. It was my dad. I opened it just far enough to see his face and immediately regretted not checking the peephole first. He looked older, like stress had finally caught up with the arrogance. His eyes were bloodshot, his dress shirt was wrinkled in a way that didn't feel like style, and he didn't smile. Instead, he opened with, "Jacob, we need to talk." I stared at him. "No, You need to leave. He stepped forward like he expected me to cave. Like we'd just rewind to some simpler time where he barked orders and I followed out of habit. I drove 2 hours to get here, he said. That's not my problem, I replied, already shutting the door. His hand caught it before it closed fully. Don't do this. You're better than this. And that's when I snapped. I pushed the door open just wide enough to look him dead in the eye. You changed the locks. You blocked my number. You told me I wasn't part of the family. And now that the gravy train's off the tracks, you remember where I live. He looked taken aback, like he expected tears or pleading, not steel. That was your mother, he muttered, trying to shift blame like a shell game. I scoffed. She hit send. But you both signed the papers. You watched Megan move in. You watched her pretend like she built that house with her bare hands while I was footing the bill. And you didn't say a word. He stepped back slightly, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, it got out of hand. But you know how your sister is. We were just trying to support her. No, I said firmly. You were enabling her. There's a difference. He tried one more card. The oldest one in the book. She's family. I stared at him in disbelief. And I'm not. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I shut the door in his face. This time, he didn't stop it. I stood there for a long time, hand on the doorknob, heart thudding. Because as much as I hated it, part of me still wanted him to knock again. To apologize. To say he messed up, really meant it. Maybe even say the words I'd never heard growing up. I'm proud of you. But all I heard were footsteps retreating down the hall. That night, Megan tried again. She called from a friend's number. This time, she wasn't angry. She was pathetic. Jake, I know we've had our issues, but we're in a serious bind. Mom and Dad are not doing well. The house is going to be taken if we don't get help. Can't you just spot us a couple months until we figure something out? Figure something out? I repeated. You mean like a job? Dead silence. Then, you're being cruel. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was the most backward, twisted accusation I'd ever heard. I paid your rent for a year and a half. Without a thank you. You humiliated me at your birthday dinner. You all cut me out and made me feel like a stranger in my own family. And now that the money's gone, I'm cruel? You don't understand, she said, voice rising. No. I interrupted, voice calm but ice cold. You don't understand. Actions have consequences. And just because you never had to face them before doesn't mean I'm going to keep shielding you. I hung up, blocked the number, and that was when the campaign started. They didn't stop. Not even close. Aunt Marie messaged me on Facebook, pretending to check in before slipping in. Your mom's heart's been acting up again. All this stress isn't helping. Uncle Ron sent me an email asking if I'd consider being the bigger man. Even my godmother, who I hadn't seen since high school, texted to say how disappointed she was in me. That's when I realized they were doing it. They were playing the martyr card. The "we did our best but Jacob turned on us" act. Classic. Except this time, I didn't stay quiet. I drafted one post. Just one. I didn't tag anyone. Didn't name names. Just facts. For the past 18 months, I paid someone else's $4,600 mortgage. I was never asked if I could afford it, never thanked. Then I was cut off, blocked, and locked out of a house I'd been silently keeping afloat. Now that the bank is involved, I'm suddenly important again. Not because I matter, but because the money does. I won't name names. But I won't be guilted into silence either. I logged off after that. I didn't check the reactions. Didn't scroll the comments. But the messages stopped. I think, deep down, they knew it was over. That I'd stepped out of the role they'd written for me and wasn't looking back. But then something happened that I wasn't expecting. Something that pulled the rug out from under this whole thing. Because 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail, no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. It was from my mom. The envelope was cream-colored, creased at the corners, with a familiar looping script that I hadn't seen in years, not on anything personal, anyway. It smelled faintly like lavender. My mom had always sprayed letters with perfume, even holiday cards. I held it in my hands longer than I probably should have, debating whether to rip it up or read it. Curiosity 1. Inside was a single piece of lined paper, neatly folded in thirds. Jacob, I know we've hurt you. I know the things we said, what I said can't be unsaid. But I am asking you to at least try to understand where I was coming from. Megan needed us. She still does. And maybe I got so focused on keeping her above water that I didn't realize I was letting you drown in silence. You never asked for help, and I took that to mean you didn't need anything. I see now how wrong I was. I didn't know about the payments. Not all of them. Your father handled the finances. But I knew enough to know we were being carried, and I let it happen. I let you carry us, and I didn't say thank you. I didn't say I love you. I didn't say I'm proud of you. I am so proud of you, Jacob. I always have been. But somewhere along the way, I forgot to say it out loud. I was too busy worrying about everything else, and I see now what that cost. The house, well, you probably know it's gone. We're staying with your sister's friend for now, but it's not permanent. Nothing is. If you never want to see us again, I understand. But I hope one day, maybe, we'll sit at a table again. Even just once. No demands. No expectations. Just family. Love, Mom. I reread the letter 3 times. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I needed to figure out if it was real. It felt honest. Regretful. But it came after everything. After the lies, the betrayal, the smirks and locked doors and lawyer voicemails. After the whole family had turned me into a villain for finally saying no. And now that they'd lost it all, the truth was just convenient. But I didn't feel angry anymore. Not even cold. Just done. For the first time in years, my shoulders didn't feel like they were holding up an entire household. My phone wasn't blowing up. No payment reminders. No desperate spot me just this once texts. The silence wasn't lonely, it was peaceful. And I didn't want to give that peace up. Not even for an apology. 3 weeks later, the house hit the auction listing. I saw the photos online. Every corner looked emptier than I remembered. Not physically, there was still furniture and decor, but emotionally. It was like the illusion had cracked, and the house finally reflected the truth. It had never been a home. Just a stage set, propped up by sacrifice and denial. I got a message from an old neighbor, Mrs. Fields. She was the kind of woman who knew everything going on within a 5-block radius. She told me my parents had been forced to vacate within 14 days. Megan hadn't taken it well. There had been shouting. Police weren't called, but it was close. No surprise there. A week after that, I got another email, this time from the bank's lawyer. Apparently, I was still listed in some documentation as a concerned third party, and they wanted to know if I had any intention of bidding on the property. I didn't reply. I let the house go. And for the first time in a long, long while, I let myself go. I started spending money on myself. Not extravagantly, but meaningfully. I upgraded my apartment, took a solo trip to the mountains and left my phone on airplane mode the entire time. Bought a used car that wasn't held together by prayers and duct tape. Signed up for therapy and actually went. I stopped checking Megan's Instagram. Blocked the family group chat for good measure. Changed my number. Deleted the saved payment accounts. One day, while walking through a bookstore, I picked up a blank journal. I didn't know what I'd write in it, but I felt like something needed to start. Not to process the pain. Therapy was already doing that. But to record who I was becoming, now that I wasn't stuck in the role they'd assigned me. The reliable one. The bank account. The invisible son. That guy was gone. Months passed. I didn't see them. Didn't hear from them. Christmas came. No card. No message. And for once, that felt like a gift. On New Year's Eve, I sat alone in my new apartment, sipping tea and watching fireworks from the balcony. I thought about all the years I spent trying to earn love by being useful. About how easily they discarded me the second I stopped serving a purpose. But more than anything, I thought about how close I'd come to believing they were right. And I was proud of myself for walking away. For burning the bridge they swore was my only path. For surviving. And then building something better. One morning, early spring, I got an email from an unfamiliar name. No subject line. Just one sentence. I understand now. I'm sorry. I didn't need to ask who it was from. I didn't reply. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't a dramatic confrontation. It's living a life so free, so full, so authentically yours, that the people who broke you are left to wonder how you did it without them. And the truth is, I just stopped waiting for them to care and started choosing me every single day.